Hi, this is Boss City Brian, and I'm here to have a fresh look at my top 5 favorite episodes of Gilligan's Island. I did cover this topic in one of my first videos, but I wanted to add some things and have another crack at it. So, Gilligan's Island, the classic TV series created by Sherwood Schwartz, aired on CBS television from 1964 to 1967. As a kid, I found it when it went into syndication in 1968, where it found greater popularity than when it was on CBS. It grew to become one of my favorite TV series. It's the classic tale of 7 castaways who set sail on a 3-hour sightseeing tourist excursion and end up on a deserted, uncharted island. The intent of the series was to be a comedic look at vastly different people learning to get along, work together, and create their own little society. Series creator Sherwood Schwartz came up with great concepts for his shows, but he and his writers didn't always stick to the series' premises. However, that's where some of the classic moments come from, and that's also where some of the outrageous storylines come from. The concept behind the phrase jumping the shark may have originated with Happy Days, but Sherwood Schwartz shows shark jumped over and over again. But that could be one of the reasons his shows, especially Gilligan and the Brady Bunch, are beloved and people are still watching them and enjoying them more than 50 years later. So let's get started on my top 5 favorite episodes of Gilligan's Island. My number 5 is Seer Gilligan. It's the 19th episode from season 2. This episode finds the castaways in conflict because Gilligan has found seeds that, when ingested, gives a person the ability to read minds. Gilligan shares some of the seeds with the other castaways, and as they consume all their allotment, they vie to get larger supplies of these super seeds. Knowing what the other castaways are thinking creates conflict between the castaways. It's quite comical watching them all argue with each other using the mind-reading ability. The discord between the castaways, though, distresses Gilligan. Knowing that peace might be impossible because of his discovery, Gilligan destroys all the seeds and the bush from where they came. I found it touching that the castaways were first upset with Gilligan, but then, realizing that in the name of peace and unity on the island, he really did do the right thing. Seer Gilligan comes in at number 5 on my list. Next is Quick Before It Sinks, and this is the 6th episode of season 2. In this episode, the professor's attempts to measure the incoming tide surrounding the island lead him to believe that the island is sinking. He and the other men feel that the women will not be able to handle this news. So they start to secretly build new huts on higher ground and on stilts. And they're doing this work at night to keep the women in the dark. And the results are hilarious. They're attempting to do this work with no sleep. The women find out and take charge. They come up with a plan to build an ark and put the men to work. Gilligan and the skipper get aboard a mock-up of their ark for a dry run, and the laughs ensue. It's very funny. While I enjoy this episode for the comedic value, I also like the idea that the so-called helpless women are the ones who take charge and come up with a possible solution. And this is number 4 on my list. Number 3 is The Invasion. It's the 11th episode of season 3, and it's the only one on my list from season 3. A briefcase washes ashore containing top secret government information. And of course, Gilligan ends up handcuffed to it. He's afraid that whoever is looking for this secret information will find him attached to it and eliminate him. The bulk of the episode is a dream sequence where Gilligan dreams about his fears concerning the briefcase. I know a lot of people who don't like dream sequences in TV shows. Well, I do if they're done well, and I like this one because it's a clever spy spoof. In the dream, Gilligan is a James Bond type spy. Skipper is portrayed as an enemy agent assassin disguised as Gilligan the spy's mother. Playing the evil head of the enemy agency is Thurston Howell. His evil secretary is Marianne, who tries to kill Agent Gilligan. Playing the murderous femme fatale is Ginger. All of their attempts to do away with Agent Gilligan result in each of their demise. It turns out that, spoiler alert, that the contents of the briefcase are outdated and worthless. But it was enough to land at number 3 on my top 5. My number 2 is the 12th episode of season 2, Don't Bug the Mosquitoes. This is the one where a Beatles-like group have themselves deposited on an uncharted island so they can get rest and relaxation from the frenzy of mosquito mania. And as luck would have it, they happen to pick Gilligan's Island for their tropical retreat. The mosquitoes do agree to take the castaways with them when they return to civilization, as long as they are allowed to have some peace and quiet. And of course, the castaways just can't leave them alone. They believe that if they disturb the mosquitoes so much that the mosquitoes will get fed up and want to return to civilization, taking the castaways with them. So one of their schemes is for the castaways to form their own rock groups. The men in beetle wigs pound on instruments that the professor made, but the women's group, named the Honeybees, sing to an instrumental record of a song called You Need Me. And they did a bit of girl group choreography. Where they got a karaoke style record is beyond me. A few years ago, I was disheartened to find out that Dawn Wells, Marianne, wasn't actually singing her part in the Honeybees. She was lip syncing to someone else's voice. It was deeply disappointing. But it's still a fun song, and it's still a fun sequence. To this day, people recreate the Honeybees song and dance on YouTube, and so it lives on outside the TV show. Now back to this episode. The Mosquitoes, who were played by Les Brown Jr. and the Wellingtons, they play a couple of their songs. But ultimately, the Mosquitoes leave without the castaways. They left one of their LPs with a note which stated that the Honeybees were so good that they would be too much competition for the Mosquitoes in the music business, so they were leaving the castaways behind. Like all of the nearly 24 visitors to Gilligan's Island, not one of the Mosquitoes had a conscience. Not Bingo, not Bango, not Bongo, and not even Irving thought enough of their fellow man to at least alert the authorities to the castaways' whereabouts. Speaking of visitors to the island, 3 of them were doppelgangers for 3 of the castaways. What are the odds of that? I discussed TV show lookalikes in another episode here on the channel. Doppelgangers and evil twins. I'll leave a link in the description below so you can check it out. So this leads us to my favorite, number 1 favorite episode of Gilligan's Island. And that is Hi-Fi Gilligan. It's the 10th episode from season 2. And in it, after a blow to the head, a filling in Gilligan's mouth becomes a radio receiver. It just so happens that at the same time, the radio stops working. So now the castaways' only connection to the outside world is via Gilligan's mouth. According to radio reports that they hear in Gilligan's mouth, the castaways make a plan to ride out the storm in a cave. As the storm approaches, it turns out that the cave is not big enough for all 7 of them. Even after removing some of their supplies, there's only room for 6 of them. So the men decide to draw straws to determine who will have to weather the storm outside alone with no protection. Gilligan pretends to have the short straw and goes outside. Skipper realizes that Gilligan did not have the short straw and he threw their competition. So he leaves the cave to ask Gilligan, who was taking refuge around a skinny tree, why he pretended to lose. Gilligan communicated that well, he's the most expendable and least necessary for survival of the men. Skipper, touched by that, decides that he's going to brave the storm with his little buddy. Ultimately, the professor exits the cave to check on the skipper and decides to stay with Gilligan and Skipper. The usually cowardly Mr. Howell follows, and all four men are going to stay together, moved by Gilligan's selflessness. The next thing you know, all 7 castaways are outside surrounding this skinny tree. The expression on the professor's face when he sees the 3 women come out of the cave is hilarious. The reason this episode rises to the top for me to become my favorite is watching Gilligan's expression of self-sacrificial love is touching to me. And the love that the 7 of them have for each other, and the decision to face the storm outside of the cave together is very moving. Because it is their love that ultimately saves them as lightning hits the cave and destroys it. If they had not followed Gilligan out, they all would have perished. It's Gilligan's Island at its best, humorous and silly, but touching at the end, and still funny. And so that's why I like it. Shows created by Sherwood Schwartz are unique. There's nothing like them. They are sitcoms with intriguing concepts like 7 castaways on a deserted island, astronauts marooned in the Stone Age, and a blended family with 6 kids and 1 bathroom. In execution, these shows are all over the place as far as form and style. Gilligan's Island, an episode will still have a sitcom framework with funny dialogue and frequent dashes of slapstick, but in the same episode, the tone might become farcical, fantastic, ridiculous, or outlandish. The characters might behave out of character just for the sake of a joke, but there's a lot of sketch comedy elements in the Sherwood Schwartz series. But his shows have an odd mix that somehow led to some very enduring television. Regarding Gilligan's Island, I tend to think that if you don't become a fan of it when you're a kid, it's going to be very difficult for you to enjoy it that much as an adult. Though I'm sure it happens. So that wraps up my look at my Gilligan's Island top 5. But I'm really curious about your top 5. Please list them in the comments as you like and subscribe. All of which will be greatly appreciated. But it's been a lot of fun looking back nostalgically at the show I enjoyed as a youth. But I was so much older then, and I'm younger than that now. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.